Last week, Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp went down for over 5 hours, the longest outage that Facebook has seen since 2008. This comes after months of bad press and just a few short hours after their most recent whistleblower revealed herself to be Frances Haugen on 60 Minutes. Haugen has accused Facebook that their products harm children, more specifically that Instagram's products can increase the severity of teenage girls' mental health issues, stokes division within political parties and ethnicities within the US and worldwide, and even weakens our democracy. And not only that, but she has the documents and the data to prove it. Haugen released thousands of pages worth of data and documents directly from Facebook researchers that prove a lot of her cases. And the reality is, when it comes to this data, this is likely just the tip of the iceberg. Facebook's research is extraordinary, but it's also private. No one outside of Facebook has access to it. After Haugen's interview on 60 Minutes and last Monday's outage, Haugen headed over to Congress, where she shared her story about her time at Facebook, the data that she had uncovered, and answered senators' questions. Since then, Facebook has been on a damage control spree, sending out their top executives and Zuckerberg himself to defend the company, and canceled their impending rollout of Instagram for kids. Because obviously, here's the reality. Right now, we are seeing the collision of a couple of huge different issues surrounding Facebook all at once. Whether it's online misinformation or harassment, monopoly power, and how Facebook has been running around unchecked for years. The fact that online legislation really hasn't changed for the last 25 years, and the fact that these companies are doing everything they can to maximize profits, whether or not it is good for the world. They are a $1 trillion company. They have a monopoly on the entire social media space with over 75% of the market. Their advertising business and revenues are off the charts. No one can really compete with them on that end except for Google, I guess. But the truth is, the cracks are showing. And Facebook, in the next decade, might become a dying platform. So today I'm going to talk about what exactly happened this past week. I'm going to talk about the whistleblower Frances Haugen and her testimony on Congress and on 60 Minutes. I'm going to talk about Facebook's massive outage, why it's a big deal, but also maybe not that big of a deal. I'm going to talk about Facebook's reaction to all of the shenanigans last week and why I believe that this moment could signal a turning point for Facebook. And it might not be a pretty one for them. I also might make fun of Zuckerberg, you know, just for fun. Want to learn more? Let's get started. We're gonna have some fun today. What happened to Clubhouse? Here's what you need to know. There was just one problem. The more I dig, the more I worry they're going to the moon. Before we get started, if you don't know who I am, hi, my name is Carolyn. I'm a creative entrepreneur who loves to talk about everything in the startup, tech, and VC world, and I post videos every Tuesday, except for last week because I was traveling and then Facebook broke and then life became crazy, and also maybe not this week, we'll see. But if you like this video, you should really consider liking and subscribing. I'll let you decide after you watch more, but just think about it, okay? Brand new here. Thanks, let's go. First, let's talk about the Facebook whistleblower. Frances Haugen is a former product manager at Facebook, but has also worked at Google, Yelp, and Pinterest. Originally from Iowa City, Iowa, she graduated from Olin College with a degree in computer engineering and electrical engineering and got her MBA from Harvard. Her job at Facebook? She managed democracy and misinformation issues and also worked on counter-espionage as part of the civic misinformation team. So basically, Haugen knows what she is talking about, and she was privy to some of the most classified documents, research, and chaos at Facebook. AKA, Frances Haugen may be the most dangerous whistleblower that Facebook has ever had. She is an incredibly effective communicator, she is an engineer who knows her stuff, and she's also a nice girl from the Midwest who really believes in ethics and doing the right thing. Seriously, doesn't get much scarier than that. Perfect time for the spookiest season of the year. Back in September, the Wall Street Journal started releasing a series called The Facebook Files, a Wall Street Journal investigation, where they basically took a look at all of the leaked documents and data that Haugen had given them. However, it wasn't until October 3rd that Frances Haugen revealed herself as the whistleblower, published her website, and appeared on 60 Minutes for an in-depth interview all about the data that she had revealed and her time working for Facebook. Her main argument? That Facebook's products harm children, stoke division, and weaken our democracy.
The thing I saw at Facebook over and over again was there were conflicts of interest between what was good for the public and what was good for Facebook. And Facebook over and over again chose to optimize for its own interests, like making more money.
She focused on a lot of different areas, including exemptions for high-profile users, weaknesses in responding to human trafficking and drug cartels, vaccine misinformation, and of course, misinformation in general. However, Haugen's biggest strength when giving her testimony, and really the biggest argument that everybody's been trying to prove for years, is that Facebook's algorithm thrives on hatred. See, as Haugen explains so beautifully, Facebook's algorithm prioritizes engagement above all else. Engagement meaning likes, comments, shares. The more a post gets attention from other users, the more Facebook is going to want to promote that post. Makes sense, right? If something's really popular and there's a lot of things that people are talking about, you would think that Facebook would want to prioritize that content. However, Facebook discovered that content that is highly negative or problematic, has a clickbaity title, absolutely outrageous and causes people to be really angry, just happens to be the most engaging content that exists on the platform.
Optimizing for content that gets engagement, a reaction. But its own research is showing that content that is hateful, that is divisive, that is polarizing, it's easier to inspire people to anger than it is to other emotions.
Misinformation, angry content is enticing to people and keeps them on the platform.
That is why your Facebook feed is filled with people yelling at each other. Because Facebook has designed its algorithm to make sure that things that you get angry about pop up at the top of your timeline so that you, the user, will spend more time on Facebook and potentially buy something in one of their ads. And if you work in tech, that makes perfect sense. That is exactly what you want to do. Not necessarily, cause everyone to be angry 24/7 all the time, but your goal is to keep users on the platform for as long as possible. And not only that, but keep coming back. They want to make it as addictive as possible so that you, the user, will come back and maybe, just maybe, click on more ads. Haugen's argument here is that Facebook's leadership team consistently decides to do whatever is most financially beneficial for them, regardless of the consequences that happen to societies all around the world.
Facebook has realized that if they change the algorithm to be safer, people will spend less time on the site, they'll click on less ads, they'll make less money.
However, it doesn't have to be this way. Facebook's algorithms were designed to promote inflammatory content. They were designed to be this way, and in fact, they didn't used to be. If you have been on Facebook for as long as I have, you may remember that Facebook's newsfeed used to be called Facebook timeline, and it used to show everything in chronological order of when people posted them. Now, a lot of the information and data that Haugen released to the public is stuff that news junkies like me have known for years. We know that Instagram and Facebook have detrimentally harmed teenagers and others' mental health. That is pretty well-known fact, though we've never had Facebook's data, the data that they basically know that this has been happening for years. We didn't know that they had that data, even though the rest of us kind of, came to the same conclusion. There have been plenty of leaks that have talked about the issues with Cambridge Analytica back during the 2016 election. There's a lot of content out there that talks about how Facebook's algorithm was inflaming ethnic violence and genocide in countries like Myanmar, Ethiopia, and even the Philippines.
A variety of sources that hate speech, divisive political speech, and misinformation on Facebook and the family of apps are affecting societies around the world.
When we live in an information environment that is full of angry, hateful, polarizing content, it erodes our civic trust, it erodes our faith in each other, it erodes our ability to want to care for each other.
But what is new about this whistleblower, this leak, and Frances Haugen in general, is that we have far more data on what Facebook knows, and that Facebook's research is far more vast than anybody really realized or at least had access to. In addition to that, Frances Haugen, as a product manager, her job is to translate what engineers are doing and what customers are doing and figure out how to communicate with absolutely everyone. She is a phenomenal communicator, and she is able to translate to all of our old Congress people how Facebook works, what an algorithm is, and basically how it is harmful in easy to understand ways. And on top of that, and partly thanks to the fact that Frances Haugen is a phenomenal communicator, Congress finally seems to maybe understand what is going on. And on top of that, this appears to be a bipartisan issue. Perhaps the only bipartisan issue. Senator Blumenthal and Senator Blackburn both made opening statements basically mimicking each other and saying that this is something that is incredibly important to both parties and needs to be taken seriously. And it seems like Congress might do something. Amazing! Yeah, so guys, this is really big stuff. I'm not gonna go into all of the data because that would probably be 8 separate videos. So I'm going to link down to her testimony below. Please check it out or watch the 60 Minutes interview if you like. There's plenty of clips everywhere online. Definitely dig into this. This is really interesting stuff, guys. Okay, we are briefly going to discuss how and why Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp went down last week, what caused that outage, and why it's both really kind of fascinating and also maybe not as big of a deal as Twitter wishes it was. Now, fun fact, I am not an engineer, so I'm going to try to do engineering for dummies explanation here. It is entirely based off of the blog post of Facebook's VP of Infrastructure, Santosh Janardhan, and I'm going to try to break it down for you. But engineers, I apologize. Feel free to correct me in the comments down below. I think I did a pretty good job though. Here we go. The outage was triggered during some routine maintenance tests when an engineer launched a command to Facebook's global backbone network. Facebook's global backbone network is exactly what it sounds like, okay? So Facebook owns a whole bunch of different companies, right? So Facebook itself, Instagram, WhatsApp, other companies like Oculus, etc., etc. So what they've done is they've built these big server farms or facilities, stuff like that, which are basically these massive computers which can do all sorts of calculations, things like that, and help send messages to the right place. So if you are on your phone and you want to post a photo on Instagram, you are going to send a notification, a note, or a signal from your phone, you're gonna click that button, that signal in just a few milliseconds is going to zoom straight over to Facebook's global backbone network, right? It's the backbone, it connects to everything. And the network will zoom the signal around and make sure that it goes to the, hello, this person wants to make an Instagram post. Yes, I repeat, an Instagram post. It will go to that place, confirm that the thing it needed to do happened, and then zoom straight back to your phone and let you know your post has been completed, all within a few milliseconds. So without this, Facebook isn't connected to the internet, all of the different companies aren't connected to each other, etc., etc. If this breaks, everything breaks, and that is why security and maintenance of the global backbone network is so important. Now, normally, if a Facebook engineer were to, say, launch a command to the global backbone network, nothing bad would happen. However, on this particular date and time, the command that was issued to the global backbone network somehow created an error and disconnected the global backbone network from the internet and literally everything else. This was likely caused by a bug. Facebook has all of these different systems that are designed to make sure that things like this don't happen, and that if a signal is sent and it's the incorrect command, or that command would do something like, say, break Facebook, that it would just stop it from happening. But there was a bug in that particular system that was supposed to stop something like this from happening, so it happened. That was my incredibly descriptive, intelligent way of explaining Facebook broke. So the global backbone network went completely offline. And what's really crazy about this is, because it went offline, Facebook engineers didn't have access to the network unless they were physically with the servers. And with everybody working from home or in an office that is not near the servers, no one could do their jobs. Nobody could fix it from afar. So suddenly, Facebook had to get all of their staff people who manage this type of network to leave wherever they were in the middle of the workday and go to these servers, which are all over the world, to try to solve the problem. Everybody basically had to get out of their homes and run to Facebook. And then on top of that, because Facebook has all of their internal systems connected through the global network, and you know, that's how they message each other, that's how they email each other, that's how they whatever, all of their normal internal communication things basically went down. And then on top of that, Facebook and all of these other companies design their big powerful networks like this, like the Death Star, right? They want to make sure that no rebels can go in there, hack their way up, and blow it up, right? So they have some of the most intensive security measures that you can imagine, okay? Like, if you think remembering what your favorite pet's name was back in 2008 when you first created your Facebook account, just imagine the amount of other security hurdles these engineers had to jump through, either to get into the buildings of these server centers and then to get into the software itself. So it probably took quite a few hours simply to, you know, answer all of the questions and complete all of the magical tasks that were assigned to them. And then finally, once, you know, these engineers who were working from home were able to get to the servers, and once they had completed all of the tasks that they had to do to get past all of the security systems, then they were able to fix the problem relatively quickly, but they couldn't turn everything back on all at once because it could destroy their servers if they overheated or blew up or whatever. So they had to turn everything back on like one by one really slowly. So when you think about it that way, the fact that Facebook was only down for like 5 to 6 hours, like, wow, how did that? It's really impressive that they were able to get it up that fast, simply with all of the obstacles that they had in the first place. Yeah, so there isn't really any evidence that something malicious occurred or that Facebook did this on purpose. I know Twitter users really love the concept, and of course there was that viral tweet about how Facebook was gone forever, which of course wasn't true. Facebook's back. We can never escape our evil overlords. But like, seriously, to any Facebook engineers who were working on that outage, like, well done. Wow. I'm impressed. So meanwhile, during the outage, the rest of the internet was, casually freaking out and also telling quite a lot of jokes. Whether it was Twitter relishing in all of the attention and memes and jokes and feeling really proud of themselves, or other smaller social media platforms becoming overloaded with so many users all trying to access their servers at the exact same time. It was a wild time on the internet. Plus, with the media already in a frenzy over the whistleblower, things were just blowing up and there was so much speculation with people wondering, did Facebook do this on purpose? Did a really angry employee mess this up? Is somebody hacking Facebook because of these revelations? Did Zuckerberg decide to pull the plug just to see what would happen? Was it the new intern? And on top of all that, Facebook stock tanked badly. I think going down 5% in one day, which is pretty massive. Basically with investors abandoning ship over concerns from the whistleblower, and also the stock market, Facebook stock always goes down anytime there's an outage. So the fact that this was the biggest outage ever, yeah, that stock market price went way down. But yeah, no, it was fun and exciting and everything was exploding. After Haugen testified to Congress and was interviewed on 60 Minutes, after Facebook went out and the media was just in an absolute frenzy, how did Facebook respond? Well, it's actually been a little bit all over the map, and it's probably due to a recent Facebook PR change. According to a recent New York Times article that featured a few leaks from Facebook's executive team, whoops! Facebook's executives recently decided that they wanted to change how they react to controversies. For the past several years, basically, if something broke, Zuckerberg would go on TV or write a statement or make a little video, something like that, and basically say, oh, we're so sorry, we're working to make it better, we're doing this, or Facebook didn't do anything wrong. Say whatever a PR person told him to say. This strategy turned him into a little bit of a robot. So anytime everybody saw him, he's like sitting there and he's just like, Facebook did nothing wrong. We are working on it. We promise to do better. He just looks like an animatron a little bit. So because of that, and because Mark Zuckerberg didn't want to be seen as a villain, he wanted to be seen, in a positive light since he created Facebook, they decided to change course a bit. So instead of Zuckerberg responding to any controversy, their new plan was to have other top executives, not big names or anything like that, deliver the apology, deliver the news, etc., whatever statement that Facebook wanted to deliver, they would do it instead. And the idea was to make it so that there was less negative attention on Mark, and instead they started having Zuckerberg become more public when it came to new announcements of new tools or new things that Facebook is doing. So if you think in the last few months you've seen Zuckerberg on TV more often announcing new technologies, that's because, yeah, you have. Zuckerberg was recently on TV twice talking about Oculus's new virtual work from home thing where you wear a VR headset and you get to look at animated versions of your colleagues and yourself having a conversation instead of on a Zoom call. That was really hyped, and he was really prominent in the interviews about that new product. And then after that, just like a few weeks later, Facebook announced their partnership with Ray-Ban about those crazy smart glasses and started, talking about how cool they are and how it's going to change the world and blah, 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 blah. And the reason why is because Facebook and Zuckerberg decided that they want Mark to appear as an innovator. This is their new PR strategy that was leaked to the New York Times. And so Zuckerberg wasn't supposed to respond to crises anymore, which is why this whole thing and their response has been super interesting. So first, they started sending Facebook executives out, right? They started the original plan, have, not necessarily really famous people working at Facebook go and give their announcement. And so the explanation that they decided to give was that basically they kind of went after Frances Haugen's credentials when that's not really relevant, since the most interesting part of her testimony is the data that she released to the public. Who she is important, since she's an excellent communicator, and the fact that she was working on some of the teams doing some of the things, but the fact of her role, they were claiming, oh, she wasn't an executive, she wasn't reporting to executives, she didn't have any direct reports, and she didn't work for Instagram. It's like, well, yeah, we know that, but she had access to a lot of this data, and she worked for counterespionage and misinformation and democracy. Like, these are still really big things that she was definitely an expert on, and that she had access to the most restricted data on. So that argument kind of fell flat, but they keep pushing it. And then, of course, they leaned into their old argument that they have now been pushing for a few years, and in fact, you've probably seen the ads for this, about how Facebook has been encouraging the United States government to update their internet privacy laws and all sorts of different internet policy in general, stating accurately that there haven't been any major regulations added for industries like Facebook in the last 25 years, which is true. And it's something that a lot of other people have been talking about. But Facebook has decided to really take this and, oh, well, we didn't know we were breaking the law because there wasn't a law, so we didn't do anything wrong. Which, if you think you might be breaking a law, even if it doesn't exist yet, maybe you could consider being the better company, maybe. So yeah, basically the media, like me, did not buy it and kept being like, no, this is stupid. These are not real reasons. What is going on here? However, as this kept building and getting bigger and bigger with the media and with Congress, Zuckerberg ended up releasing a statement that basically said everything that everybody else had said. He didn't go public on TV or anything like that, I don't think, but Congress is demanding that he come back and testify to them about this whole issue. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's really jarring. Congress is demanding that Zuckerberg come in and testify, and that more regulation needs to be implemented so companies like Facebook can't do what they've been doing. And they're bringing Congress together. Who knew that Facebook, after all of the division it's caused, after all the infighting, after all the chaos, would finally bring America together? I joke, people, I joke. Okay, guys, enough with all the fun Facebook facts. What do I think? Overall, I think when it comes to Facebook prioritizing engagement, no matter what the cost is because they are having trouble retaining younger users, and they are terrified of their new up-and-coming competitors. TikTok, Snapchat, the works, whatever kids use these days, all of these apps have become vastly more popular. I mean, TikTok users now spend more time watching videos daily than YouTube viewers do. Facebook is terrified that they are going to become irrelevant, and they are doing everything in their power to remain relevant. It's the reason why they have bought out their competitors instead of doing their best to innovate. It is the reason why they have blatantly copied competitors who refuse to be purchased from them. Whether it's Snapchat, they blatantly copied Clubhouse and have been working on a test app for stuff like that. They literally bought Instagram out of nowhere. They have a really nasty history of doing this, and they have a monopoly on the industry, but could lose it simply due to a lack of popularity. Instead of, figuring out how to make their platform better for their users, or figuring out how, to keep innovating and build new things that are exciting to people, they have been really relying on how can we prioritize content that gets engagement regardless of the costs. And overall, I think this is a huge long-term mistake. They're making a lot of decisions that are prioritizing the short term, but I think as people discover that these platforms are bad for their mental health, and that they just cause us to be angry at one another and not think through things with nuance. you know? They cause us to jump to conclusions instead of actually having meaningful discussions or finding ways to educate ourselves. I think in the long term, if Facebook continues to do what they're doing, they're going to be in really bad shape, at least culturally. They're doing really well internationally right now, but domestically in the US, yeah, it's a shit show. And the fact that, you know, their algorithm promotes ethnic cleansing in some countries and divides everyone in our communities so much, it's just devastating. And it doesn't have to be this way. And that's what Haugen really proves. When it comes to Facebook, they like to say that, oh, it's a choice between having a not best atmosphere and getting rid of free speech. No, it does not have to do with that. They have the ability to figure out what content is promoted the most. On the lower level scale, you know, amongst your friend groups, that can be a little bit hard. But among big power users of Facebook who have lots of followers, among businesses who post, or things that they list as trending on Facebook, they do have some control over that. And they are able to adjust the algorithms so that perhaps things that are, you know, inflammatory or outrageous aren't shared as much. It is possible to fix these problems. Other platforms do it all the time. I really think that Facebook has lost its way when it comes to being a company that is designed to connect people for the better. Now, I agree with Haugen on a bunch of different things. I actually agree with her argument, although I've been gone back and forth on it a little bit. I don't think that breaking up Facebook at this time would solve these issues. It might actually make them worse, is what she said. I wouldn't be surprised by that. I think they just need to allocate their resources differently, and I think legislation that, you know, pushes Facebook to do the right thing, coming from Congress, could transform how Facebook's algorithm works around the globe. And I do think that is the best course of action, and I do hope that Congress actually does something about this. And also, like Haugen, I don't think, you know, Zuckerberg is a bad person who wanted this to happen. I don't think anybody wanted this to happen. I think a lot of these executives have gotten really caught up with the numbers and aren't necessarily users of the platform anymore and have lost sight of the bigger picture. And I think they really need to do some self-reflection and maybe, you know, borrow somebody's Facebook page and use it for a while and see what's going on in real life. Yeah, that is all I've got for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I would love to know your thoughts on whether you think my analysis is completely off, if there's anything that I missed, if I completely botched my explanation on how Facebook engineering works and the global backbone network. I tried so hard on that, you guys, with like no time. I had no time to make this video. This is really quick. So leave me comments down below if you liked it. Please subscribe. I try to make videos every Tuesday. This might be going out on a Wednesday, so if it is, hello, sorry. Hope you enjoy. And yeah, I hope you're having a fantastic day. Thank you so much. Bye.